Welcome everyone to episode 25 of What's That Sound podcast. My name's Stu Watts, and today I talked with Xylo Aria, who's an artist and producer from Melbourne, Australia, soon to be moving up to the Gold Coast. She also runs music production for women, as well as being a chairperson and the treasurer of the Music Producers and Engineers Guild of Australia, both of which we talk in some depth on this episode. We also talk about her production and songwriting process and how setting limitations allows her to be more productive. If you could do us a favor and hit subscribe or follow on your podcast platform of choice, that way you can stay up to date with any new episode that comes out. And also, if you could share this podcast with a friend or on your socials, that way it can get spread to as many people as possible. Our aim is to get this out there and reach as many people as possible. So by sharing it, you're doing that, you're helping us out. So if you could do that, that'd be awesome. Otherwise, stay tuned for this episode. It's a cracker. Let's get into it. You're listening to What's That Sound with your host, Stu Watts. Welcome everyone to another episode of What's That Sound podcast. My name's Stu Watts. Today I am here with Xylo Aria. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Stu. It's lovely to be here.
Nice to meet you finally, and happy for you to be here as well.
Yeah. Great to meet you.
All right. So let's kick it off with a little bit of a backstory of what you do in the music industry and what does your day-to-day look like?
Sure. So I am, I'm an artist, but I feel like that kind of always takes the backseat these days. But a producer and also the founder of Music Production for Women, which is a teaching platform to encourage more women to get into the production and tech side of the music industry. And and then do a few other things for the Music Producer Guild of Australia and a few other things outside of that. But so day to day, honestly, is like a lot of emails. So a lot of that and coordination of MPW and our One Year program and all of that
Beautiful. We'll dive a bit more into that into a bit more detail later. But first of all, sure. I'd like to kind of find out a little bit more about where music started in your life.
Yeah, sure. So I started as a singer-songwriter and I was around music from a young age, I guess. And my grandmother is a really beautiful vocalist and she sings traditional Indian Carnatic music, which is where it sort of started for me. And I kept singing and then eventually got into Western pop, I guess, music and then started writing songs in high school and working with some producers in high school and just classmates, I guess, who were learning to produce. And then and then started releasing music that I had created with other producers. Eventually, I just got sick of relying on other people to produce my music and then started to produce my own music as well, which opens up so many creative options, which was really cool. So I've released a couple of EPs and a few different singles and worked on a few different collaborations as well. So, and the music journey took me to the UK for a couple of years before COVID, which was an incredible experience. So I was living there for a little while and then that's where I was when I started MPW. Music Production for Women as well, and then moved here just before COVID, back to Melbourne, that is. And so that's kind of a summary of the story.
Beautiful. And back when you first started getting into music, what sort of artists were you listening to? Were you looking into any producers at that time, or was it all kind of just like a passive intake of music?
It was very much a passive intake of music, I think. I actually grew up listening to a lot of Indian music, and I think without me realizing it, that's kind of influenced the kind of music that I make as well. So probably my earliest music influences were Indian, was the Indian pop scene, if we can call it that. But then, growing up, I started listening to a lot of kind of down-tempo electronic sort of stuff, which I feel like has also influenced my sound, like James Blake and FKA Twigs and that kind of thing as well. So
beautiful.
very chill stuff.
Yeah, nice. I love it. And when you started producing for yourself, was that like, tell us a little bit more about that. How did you go about that, and kind of what opened your eyes to, you know, when you started digging into it, what were you looking into? What were you learning about, that sort of thing?
Yeah, well, it's a funny thing because I actually got into production for the first time quite young. So I would have been in high school, maybe, I don't know, 14 years of age or something like that. But it's interesting looking back at that time now, because I was producing music, but in my mind that wasn't real production, and I just kind of kept telling myself, oh, I'll just, you know, make a demo and then give it to a real producer, and then I'd give it to like my friend in high school that maybe has been producing for like 6 months more than I had. So like it's just interesting that I never saw myself as someone that could do it at all. And then I came back to it years, you know, over 10 years after that, and then started teaching myself with the resources that are available online and things. So it was I didn't study in like a tertiary degree or anything like that. So it was a lot of self-taught sort of things. But yeah, it's funny now listening back to those old demos that I had. I was like, geez, they're actually decent. Like, I wish I'd just stuck with it then, like, you know, and it seems like a shame, but anyway, the things happen the way they happen. And
well, it's funny that when you're first kind of starting, you don't really no one really knows what they're doing unless there's some kind of child prodigy, which is extremely rare. But it's funny how, you know, when you start doing it, you're like, surely this isn't how anyone else does it. I'm just picking up a computer and kind of playing around with buttons and stuff like that. And, you know, the more that you see and the more, I mean, these days it's probably a little bit different because of the amount of information that we have online and things like that. But, you know, back 10, 15 years ago, it was like, I don't know, I just do it and see what happens. And experimenting was huge, and, you know, especially with electronic music, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're right. I wonder what other ways there were to teach yourself because like before YouTube, it was really just try things and see what works.
Yeah. And even like I went to TAFE I finished up in 2011, and even then, you know, we were doing a little bit of recording and a little bit of production and stuff, but it wasn't like in depth. It was just like you're barely dipping your feet in the water. It's like, and it's not enough time to actually explore all of the things that, you know, you come to love about production and things like that. So even like studying, it's just still not even that much of a dive into it. Did you have other people around you when you actually like kind of got more into the production stuff? Did you have people around you that were mentoring you, or was it all kind of like online learning?
Yeah, a lot of it was online, but there were a couple of friends that I probably drained their life with a few questions along the way, and they were really
they would have loved it.
to help me. Yeah. But maybe less than most people. There were just kind of a handful, a couple of people that I felt comfortable enough to ask questions to and everything. So maybe they got the brunt of all of my questions.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
has your process changed that much over time, since you started doing it, or is it kind of a similar sort of approach to music creation?
Yeah, I don't know if I've had a really clear process ever. It's just all been a little bit, just see what comes out, and a bit haphazard, the creation process. So maybe in that sense it hasn't. But
Yep.
of course, as you learn things and new skills start to develop, and you learn new tools that kind of spark your creativity in a new way, it's fun to play with those and try different things. So I
Yeah,
guess that
absolutely.
has.
Yeah. So talk us through kind of what your process looks like these days, when you're like, is there one approach, like you said, that's kind of haphazard, but, does it always start with a certain thing? Do you kind of come in with a vocal idea or something like that? Or is it on the computer straight away?
Yeah, I think it does change quite often from song to song. There have been some tracks where I've just kind of sat down and everything's come at once, and those are the great days where everything just works, and you
Yep.
can create things as you go. But it is helpful to have a song idea sometimes before you sit down for the production process. And I have started that way as well, where I have pretty much the whole song written with the melody and the lyrics, and then you have a bit of a production idea in your mind, and then that turns into something totally different once you actually start playing with it and creating it, which is always fun to see where things end up.
Yeah, definitely.
But
That is like one of the coolest things, where you start somewhere and you're like, I have
yeah.
no real preconceived ideas of where I want this to end, and then it goes on its own journey. It's really cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But also, if I'm feeling a bit stuck, I think sometimes introducing some sort of limitation can be really helpful. Like, I'm going to only use a part of this one sample for the whole song, or something like that. And then that really forces your brain to be creative and try different things. Because I think sometimes, definitely for me, I get, if I have too many tools available, it's just kind of death by choice. And then nothing really
Yep.
works because there are too many options.
Yeah, absolutely. The analysis paralysis.
That's it.
I've heard it being called that. Do you have kind of processes of when you get stuck in certain states of, people call it writer's block, but, when you're, maybe feeling like you're, up against a wall, what are some of your processes for getting out of that or dealing with that?
Yeah, well, I think the limitations one is a good one for me, whether it is limitations of the tools or maybe of time, and just saying, I'm going to give myself this 3-hour block and I have to get it done by then. And no matter what it sounds like or where I end up. So I think that kind of forces me to just get on it and get things done. And and I think also maybe when you are, in end of high school or uni or whatever, you can spend 6 hours over a night just on like trying things and like sleeping at a crazy time and all of that. But I feel like that's not really a luxury that we all maybe have a bit later on, and for me it throws out my whole week anyway. So I have kind of forced myself to stick to smaller chunks and just get what I can done then, which actually I think is becoming a good practice for me, because it's forcing me to get to that creativity a bit more quickly potentially.
Yeah, and it's the limitations thing, and like you said, when you kind of give yourself that chunk of time to do stuff, it's like I'm in there, I'm doing it, I'm getting it done. It's like, I can equate it to, when I might be mixing or something like that. It's like, if I need to get a song done in that day because I've got recording for a whole week the next week, it's like, all right, I need to get this out there and sent off to the client and finished up. I can't be spending 3 hours on a drum kit sound. Like, it's just not feasible and not gonna lead to me sending that off. So it's so true. Those limitations are definitely like, good to instill and get you to move forward. Do you have
for sure.
sort of favorite things that you like to work on in a production? Do you tend to focus on certain things a lot more than others, or is it kind of just, play it as it lies?
I do enjoy working on vocals, and I guess my main instrument is my voice. So playing around with different vocal ideas and melodies and things are really fun for me, and that's often a center part of the song that I'm creating. So that, I guess. Editing vocals is not the funnest thing for me. Does anyone really enjoy that? I don't know.
No, I don't think you can enjoy it. It's like it's just something that you have to do. And I can absolutely relate. I know some engineers that just won't do it. They just won't. They're just like, you do it and I'll mix it. That's fine.
Oh yes, no, so true. Actually, I was on a Instagram live yesterday speaking to a really great vocalist, and she was saying she just outsources all of the editing, and I was like, geez, I need to get on that.
It's like there's this like pride to it, like, oh, I've done absolutely everything myself, and if I give it to someone else, then it wasn't my job or something stupid like that. But anyway,
I would be fine with that, I think.
True. Now let's Oh, go for it. No, keep going.
Oh, no, I was going to say also, I think I do quite enjoy having fun with percussion as well, like just creating percussive sounds out of non-percussive samples, I think is really fun as well. So and just to add some more texture to that part of the song as well is quite an enjoyable process for me.
Super understated. I think a lot of the time percussive elements doesn't even have to be a percussion instrument, where it could just be some sort of synth that is really short and stabby and stuff and just adds to the groove and things like that. They're always really fun to play with and often overlooked, and it depends on the style of music, of course, but if you can create a vibe with percussion, I feel like it kind of gives it a really unique kind of flavor to that song that you can't really get without percussion.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Hey, thanks so much for listening so far. There is plenty more to come, so don't go anywhere. I just wanted to let you know that this podcast is made completely independently by myself with no sponsors. So if you like what you hear and you would like to show your support, you can send a donation to the PayPal link, paypal.me/whatsthatsound. The link is also in the show notes. Thanks so much for your support, and let's get back to it. I love it. So let's dive into, MPW. Talk us through how that started and why did you decide to do that in the first place?
Yeah, so I started, I guess there were a few different reasons, and me getting to production in a first instance, and the reason why I did that was because I was unfortunately having quite frustrating times working with other producers, and there are obviously really lovely producers and engineers like yourself out there, Stu, as well, and unfortunately not all the guys, unfortunately, are always super respectful, and I won't go kind of too much into the detail, but you can end up having some pretty frustrating situations where you feel like you're maybe not treated the way you should be treated, and you feel like you almost have to put up with that behavior because there isn't another option. Like you don't have the skill to produce yourself, and then you just feel like, oh my gosh, this person has control over my project, because if I don't put up with this, then they could just pull out, and then I have to find someone else, all this more money, and all of this thing is kind of running through your mind. So you can end up feeling a bit stuck, and often in those situations you feel like maybe it's your fault, or like you didn't do something right, or something like that, and then and kind of take the blame. I don't know why we do this, but especially running MPW, I also hear these stories just way, way too often. So I know it wasn't my fault, and I know, I wasn't to blame, but so it's quite frustrating to keep hearing these stories, but that's what eventually brought me to production. And at the time, I mentioned I started when I was about 14 or 15, and that was actually because it was fun at that time. But then immediately I was like, well, this isn't something that I can do at all, because all of the producers, I realized later, that I knew all fit into the same mold that I just didn't see myself in. And they're saying that you can't be what you can't see. Like, I can't stress how much truth is in that. And when you see no one in the space that looks anything like you, you immediately think you're never going to be a real producer, and you'll just, be someone that makes the demos or something like that. So that was kind of put out of my mind. Now I'm going into a bit of a backstory to it,
great.
but and then eventually, when I kind of was a bit fed up with all those situations, and I was like, well, the only option I can see is to now start producing myself. And then coming to it from that point, and at that point, not really having a particular interest in producing myself, but then getting to a point where I did have control, and then I started really enjoying it and thinking, geez, like, why did it take me so long to get to this place and to be doing this for myself? And it's definitely something I can do. So I don't know why I thought it wasn't. And then reflecting on that journey, for me, it was kind of three things that would have made it a lot easier. And one is to have some sort of community where you feel like not the odd person out all the time, and feel a bit scared to ask your questions and all of that, and then keep badgering like the two people that you do trust with the questions. But yeah, having some sort of supportive community, and secondly, to have content around production created with you in mind as a consumer of it. And I think sometimes, if I was to put how to use a compressor on Ableton in YouTube, I think you can just imagine that, all of the kind of people that be making that. And then sometimes the language around those things is all kind of a bit bro-centric as well. So I think also having content created with women in mind as a consumer of it was number two. And the third one was the role model. So just having some people that you can see, whether it's on a podcast or like in an article or something, that you're like, oh, wow, if she can do it, then maybe I can too. So that kind of thing. So then the idea of MPW kind of came to my mind of, if I can create something that puts these three things together, and it would have helped me, then perhaps it can help other women that are looking to get into this space but feeling a bit intimidated by the whole thing. So I didn't really think a whole lot about it. Like, I probably should have done a bit more research or something, but I was just like, you know what, I think this would be helpful for me, and so I'm just going to start it. So it just started like that.
Well, I love it. And it just like, you can just see how passionate you actually are about, trying to provide that, community, like you were saying, for something like this that didn't previously exist. It's always really important for, these sorts of things to, be talked about and shown in the world, and it's awesome. I love to see it, and obviously that's like a lot of the reason why I had you on here, so we could showcase it. So tell us a bit more about it. What's it all about?
Yeah, sure. So we now run one main program, which is our Master Your Music program. So it's a 1 year program going from Feb to Feb. So we just kicked it off recently, and that program takes people through the skills of producing and mixing, like everything from the basics. So assuming someone doesn't have that background at all, to a point where they should be able to start doing it themselves, and to a point where they are not fearful of it anymore and get to a point where they're actually enjoying the process. So I think once you get past that first step, then everything else becomes much easier. And then you can just go onto YouTube and find things because you're not intimidated by the whole thing. So it takes people through that. So production and mixing, but also looking at things from a business background. So looking at what you do as a music business and trying to find opportunities to monetize that. Also looking a bit at music marketing and PR. So once you have a song, what do you actually do with it? How do you create a release strategy and plan and all of that? A tiny bit at like the legal side of things as well. So I come from a business background, so I'm pretty passionate about these things, and I studied a business degree because that was probably going to go down better with my family than studying music, unfortunately. But I mean, they are very supportive now of what I do. So I've actually lost track of what I was saying. Oh, yes.
No,
So the course.
Yeah. I was just going to mention that I loved, I love that you talk about the topic of, business and finance and things like that. And I try to, whenever someone brings it up on the podcast, like allow people to talk about their experience with it, because it's one of those things, I had Simon Morrow on last week, and he brought this exact thing up. It's like, it's one of those things that you don't think about when you want to be a producer or an engineer or even just an artist in the music industry. Is you don't think that you have to create a business for yourself, and that's actually what it is. If you want to live off of music in whatever aspect that is, you have to create a business for yourself. And so it's great that that's part of it. I love that.
Yeah. Oh, you're so right there, Stu. And that's the thing, is like just having the skills to produce or engineer, at the end of the day, there are so many other things that you need to know as well, because you're not, unless you can just join a big production and then you're an employee and they're giving you all the work. But really, in reality, in the music industry, that's not how it works.
So rare.
And so you have to get your own work. If you're not doing that, then your skills as a producer and engineer are not really being used, because all these other things have to be done at the same time. So yes, I love talking about that stuff and can talk about it for a long time. But yeah, so for me, that stuff is really important, which is why I wanted to include that in our program as well.
For sure, yeah. Love it.
So that's kind of the core of what we do, is the Master Your Music program. But then we also run lots of different free events throughout the year, and these are often like 1 day full events of lots of different masterclasses from teachers from around the world, and they're all incredible educators, like
Unreal.
Really great at breaking down very complex concepts, kind of keeping it simple and everything, which I really love. So those are always fun days. So those are things that anyone can join, and there's no fee. So we try and keep it as accessible as possible for anyone that can't study with us for the year.
Beautiful. And where can people find out more, get in contact? Where can they look at the website, all that sort of thing?
Yep. So it's musicproductionforwomen.com. So all one word and then .com. So that's our handle on social media as well. So if you reach out there and yeah, you can book a little chat with me if you just want to know a bit more about what we do as well. And yeah, if there's anyone that is stuck and just needs help, then please do reach out, and we'd love to help.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an unreal business that you got going. And it's like, I love that, one, you're providing, like I said before, a community for people, for women to be able to go and actually find somewhere that like easily accessible, finding it online, like you said, you're learning from other women and things like that. So it's awesome stuff. So awesome. Now, the other thing that you're on the board of, and you're a treasurer for Music Producers and Engineers Guild of Australia. And this is something that I jumped into. I joined up pretty much as soon as I saw Anna, advertising it on social media and stuff like that. And I've been in all the meetings so far and stuff like that. But I haven't had any chance to actually talk about it on the podcast. So let's have a quick chat about that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, the opportunity kind of came up. I did put my name in to be on the board at the AGM where the board got picked, but I didn't get picked through that. And I just kind of threw my hat in the ring, and I was like, okay, we'll see what happens. And if not, then no issues. And then Anna contacted me about something else, and she was saying the board actually need to pick the last member of the board. And I actually, the bio that she put up for me, which I didn't realize was going to also be the board application, because it probably would have been phrased a little bit different. So I was like, oh, by the way, I'm also a chartered accountant. I have like lots of business skills and all of these other things, which I didn't mention before because, I didn't realize that was where I was meant to mention it. But anyway, and she said, oh, okay, like that's actually something that we really need because I'm doing that right now and I hate it. So she's like, I need someone to take this away. So anyway, they went back and they had their board meeting, and I think she put me forward, and then they picked me. So that was really nice. So been involved in that for a few months now, but it's all in the early stages, but it's exciting to see where it's going to go.
Absolutely. And for anyone that doesn't know what the heck we're talking about, is basically a guild for any producers and engineers in Australia, whether you're, like I said, producing, if you're, whatever that kind of means, right? Can you, like, any producer or engineer that has had any more than 6 credits to their name can join the guild, as well as, there's a student option as well for people that don't have those credits. Like there's discounts, there's all sorts of stuff. There's going to be catch-ups, there's going to be meetings. There's online Zooms where they have, people jump in and share their expertise and stuff like that. I think it's such a great thing that didn't exist before and exists now. So I'm really excited to see where that goes.
Yeah. Like, I think it's just incredible work by Anna to establish it. And I think it might have been tried a few times in Australia, but it hasn't properly taken off. So to have that sort of community for producers and engineers, I think will be really game changing. And it is something that has existed in other countries for so long. So, hopefully it can be a really useful resources in multiple ways, community building, but also kind of skill sharing and lots of other things, and just advocating for us as a group as well. So, so I think we're still working on really making it the best resource it can be, and there will be lots of input from the members that we'll be asking for shortly as well. So looking forward to that.
And from what I understand is, a lot of the reason why Anna kind of started doing it was she was sick of, seeing us not get, other things that other people in the music industry and just like other people full stop were getting. Things like when COVID shut down, there was, music, I'm going blank, support act and things like that. But, there wasn't anything specifically focused on producers and engineers, and we kind of got left in the dust a little bit. And so, that was kind of like the starting point from what I understand.
Yes, that's what she mentioned to me as well. So yes, so hopefully we won't be left out anymore.
And is there anything else that you can kind of share about what's going on in the background in that regard, or is it all got to be kept quiet?
Yeah, I think it'll slowly start becoming known in the coming months.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Too easy. Nice. And so beautiful. What's on the horizon for you in the near future over the next 6 months to a year? What do you got coming up?
So with MPW, we'll be running an event in the UK. So in London, we'll do like a one-day event over there, which is an in-person event, and is currently the only in-person event that we do. And that will be really, really fun. And we always get some great partners on board to help us run that event as well. So that'll be good. And while I'm there as well, we'll be getting involved in GearFest, which is like a gear festival in London as well, which is always fun. And in the next 6 months, I think that will be the majority of it. And then of course we've got our 1 year program running through the background. And personally, I will be moving to the Gold Coast. So
Ooh, nice.
That's a big thing to kind of, that's going on in the background.
Yeah, nice.
So,
yeah, beautiful.
I'm looking forward to some sun. Yeah.
Unreal. Lots going on. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to share? Actually, I've forgotten my question that I ask at the end of every single podcast. First of all, what advice could you give to, first of all, producers and engineers, and then secondly, artists that are looking to, they're maybe in their first few years of doing this? What are some pieces of advice that you could give them?
Well, producers and engineers, I think as much as you can, and this kind of goes back to the business side of things as well, like of course we want to be the best we can with our skills and everything, but all of that is not going to keep us going as much as really finding the business and everything. So trying to maybe and this is with most businesses, maybe it won't apply to all producers and engineers, but maybe find some sort of market that you work really well with and try to target that, because I think niching down for everything is quite effective, rather than trying to be everything to everyone and say, I produce every single thing for every single person. Because then once you start getting known for something, then it's like easier for people to find you for that thing as well. So maybe try and see what you really love working on and kind of make that your main thing potentially. Is one option, but I think can be quite effective.
Well, what I love about that is, at the start when you're trying things, you're actually getting a lot of experience, and you don't realize, since for someone that's been doing it for about 10 years now, at the start is when you do get all of those different pieces of experience. You might try different things out. You might go to different people's houses. You might produce with different people. You might, write different types of songs, all those sorts of things, but you're actually gathering all the experience and the data to be able to make those sorts of decisions when it comes to the time that you go, okay, I want to make this my full-time thing. What am I actually passionate about? Because you have to be passionate first off. And then what am I good at as well is really important.
Yeah, for sure.
But I love that. And you do need to find something that you can be known for. Experimenting is great at the start, but like you said, when you start to taking it a bit seriously, you need to be known for something.
Yeah. I'm glad you agree.
And then how about for artists?
For artists, I think maybe get mentally prepared for the long-term game. I think of course, we know that in the industry that any overnight success is not an overnight success and takes years of work to get there. But I think sometimes when you're on that route, you just want everything to happen really quickly, and then you're like, I'm going to put everything into it for 6 months and like just make it work, and if it doesn't work, then that's the end. But really knowing that, okay, it's going to take a while, how can I make this sustainable so that I can keep at it for a while as well? And I think this is where maybe we need to think about, do I need to get a part-time job or something that's going to sustain me, to allow me to do it for a longer time until you can make that income from the music, rather than saying I'm going to put all my savings into the next 6 months and then hope that it's going to work then, and then because
it's so true, and there's no shortcuts either. You can't jump steps. You have to do all of the things that you need to do in the first 5 years. I would say is like the ramping up point of any artist's career is like. And the faster you climb, the faster you fall as well. If you have one song that for whatever reason blows up and then you can't follow it up with anything, you're just going to get forgotten. And so you're absolutely right. The long game is where it's at. And that absolutely applies for producers as well. You can't expect to land a beat or, get some song with some amazing songwriter in the first year. It's just like extremely unlikely to happen. And you won't be able to back it up either.
Yeah. Actually, I'm going to add one more
Go for
to
it.
like not take things too personally as well. And I think often when we are in a creative field, we can feel like, oh, if someone hasn't taken the beat or whatever it is, it means that it's because your skills are really bad. But obviously we can keep working on our craft and everything, but maybe it's just that doesn't fit exactly with that artist or something like that. So try not to take it too personally and then just keep moving forward, and something will work eventually. But I know that it took me a long time to work out, and I still get caught out on it.
It's so true. And things like, oh, I didn't get that gig, but they did. It's not a competition. It's not you versus someone else. It's everyone's on their own path doing their own thing, and you're so right. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been so great. I've loved to learn. I've loved learning more about MPW, and obviously talking about Producers and Engineers Guild as well. But is there anything else that you'd love to share before we start to wrap up?
No, nothing really. I guess.
Beautiful.
Yeah, if anyone is scared to start producing music, just start. Like, just take your first steps, and it gets easier.
I love it. And where can people find you online?
So Xylo Aria, so just at XYLO ARIA on Instagram or something. Feel free to say hi. It would be lovely to hear from you.
Beautiful. Well, I'll have all of the links to everything that we've talked about in the show notes anyway, for anyone that wants to find out more or get in touch with you. It'll all be in there. But thank you so much for joining me today. It's been awesome. And hopefully we can catch up soon. Hopefully there's some, guild meetings or something in person that comes to Melbourne, and, we can catch up, and we'll see what happens.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me, Stu. It's been a really lovely
chat. You're
chat.
welcome. No worries.
Cheers.
And for anyone that's stuck around this long, thank you. And the best thing that you can do for us is share this podcast with anyone on your DMs, on your stories, in a personal conversation. That way we can spread the word about this and get this out to as many people as possible. And make sure you hit subscribe or follow on the platform that you are listening or watching this on. That way you can stay up to date with every new episode that comes out. But that's it for now. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on What's That Sound podcast. Thanks for listening to What's That Sound. Make sure you hit follow or subscribe on your podcast platform to stay up to date with each new episode. We'll catch you next time.